Perfect. Sounds good. Will do. So before I get started here today, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Heather Spear, our marketing manager with the HP SitePrint team, for helping to put together this presentation today. And then also on the line, we have Rachel Kurth, our customer success manager. And some of you might know her from her job down in the Southeast as well, supporting some onboarding as well. She's going to be helping to monitor the Q&A session and to help answer questions as we run through the slide deck here. So with that, we'll get right into it. All right, so perfect. So today during the call, we're going to go over a few things. So first, just a brief intro into the HP SitePrint. Then we're going to go over what that pay-as-you-go pricing model looks like, how does it work, and then a brief cost comparison scenario before kind of wrapping up with a SitePrint user interview and just tying all the slides together as we look to finish this up. So all right, to get us all started here. So why did HP develop the SitePrint, right? So when I think of HP, before joining the team here, construction wasn't necessarily one of the first things that came to mind, right? So why did HP decide to join this market? And this is some informational graphics that a lot of you guys in the trades might find, pretty repetitive. It's something that, we've definitely faced in the construction industry for quite a long time, and that's that productivity and labor shortage has really led to the construction industry as a whole lagging behind, especially when we compare that to different industries such as manufacturing. And then on the right-hand side here, you're taking a look at all of the job openings that have been up in the construction industry. And you can see it's a steady trend up, and it's adding to difficulty within the trades overall, right? Everybody's looking to complete these jobs on time and under budget. It's very hard to do when you don't have the manpower to finish those tasks accordingly. So with that, one of the main issues that we've come across is that layout can be a huge challenge to getting these projects done, not only on time, but accurately and efficiently, right? So the challenges that we face today in the layout application process are, first off, is that it's a manual process, right? It's something that requires human skill, a very skilled operator to understand and read those plans to really make sure that you're laying out things and you're marking things in the right locations. So with that, if you don't have that manpower and if you don't have that skilled labor that's able to complete that application, it leads to mistakes and reworks. And mistakes and rework can really be a killer on the bottom line of a job site, right? So if you're having to build a wall twice or three times because it was put up in the wrong spot, that can really eat into those profits overall and then lead to delays and cost overruns, right? So if we're all trying to get out of these projects profitably, accurately, and efficiently, it all starts with layout. Because if it's in the wrong spot, and it doesn't matter how quickly it went up, it's going to be just as much to tear that down and then build it back up in the right spot. So with that, say hello to the HP SitePrint. So what you're seeing right now on the screen is just a short little video of how the HP SitePrint operates. So as you can see, as the SitePrint rolls around onto the job site, it's leaving behind the track lines of exactly what needs to be laid out on site. So the way that the HP SitePrint operates is that you position it with a robotic total station. So once the HP SitePrint understands where it is on the job site, it can then print out onto the slab, onto the floor, onto the plywood, all of the applications that you're looking to complete on your day-to-day tasks. So with this, what do you get out of it, right? So you save time and money. It's a faster layout with just one operator, and it can increase productivity by up to 10x. Right, depending on the size of the application and also the complexity of the application as well. The other benefit that you get is it's an autonomous operation, right? So once you set up that SitePrint and you tell it to go, it's going to do all that layout for you very autonomously. And then lastly, you're getting an accurate end result, right? So when I think HP, one of the first things I think of are printers, right? So when I think of the CAD files or the drawing files that we plug into that SitePrint, as soon as I set up that robot in the right spot and I hit print, whatever information that I'm plugging into it is exactly what I'm going to get out onto the floor. So it's about creating that digital twin, that last mile. So that beautiful CAD model or Revit model that you guys are working with out in the field, what you want laid out and what is designed is exactly that information that you're going to get out there onto the job site itself. So with that, now that HP has developed this product, we know it works, we know that it's meeting a need within the construction industry, how do we bring this to market, right? So obviously this is something that's going to have to make sense for the HP side, but also make sense for our customers that are implementing this solution onto their projects. So there were three main models that we looked at initially. So the first is a subscription model, right? So the pros of that is that it's a fixed cost per month. It would be an all-inclusive package, and it's simple messaging. You know exactly how much it's going to be every given month. But with the cons of that is that you end up paying for downtime, right? When projects get delayed or projects, fail to start, it's hard to, really predict when there's factors out of your control if that site print is going to be able to complete those applications in the time frame that you really budgeted for. So that hard to predict ROI is something that really comes into play. And then lastly, there's no ownership of that hardware, right? So as soon as that subscription runs out, you have to send that robot back and you no longer have that solution at your disposal. So the second model that we looked at would be more of a service model, right? So with this, it would be a little bit easier to predict those costs per project, right? So you would hire a HP or someone with an HP site print to come out to your project, complete that job for you, and you know exactly what you're getting into. So you get that white glove service and you get that robot that's operated by a specialist. But the cons of that from the HP side is that it's not scalable, right? So HP doesn't have the bandwidth to send out HP site prints and HP site print operators all over the world. And at the end of the day, our customers still wouldn't own that hardware and then would also be reliant on that operator schedule. So if that operator isn't available to print their project for them, then they're out of luck and they aren't able to use that HP site print at the ready. And then lastly, we looked at a purchase model. So the pros of this is that there's a full ownership of that hardware and you have that robot ready to implement on demand. Now, the cons of that would be it would be a very expensive entry price. And again, it would lead to unpredictability when it comes to that ROI, because there would be repairs involved, maintenance involved, the different inks that are involved with that package, right? And then afterwards, it would be a limited support after sale. So there would be a limited incentive to support that robot, especially if things go wrong, last minute changes or anything that might need to happen. It would be a limited support scope to really help customers out there with the HP site print to operate that model efficiently. So when we took a look at all three of these, there really wasn't anything that really we felt worked with what our early access partners and what our R&D development was really telling us, right? So this is where we came up with something a little bit more innovative. It's called the pay-as-you-go model. And the pay-as-you-go model is really something that was developed in tandem with our early partners to understand, what is a structure that works best for you. And when we were working with these contractors, some of the same sorts of complaints or the same sorts of suggestions were always something that came up, right? I don't want the subscription model. I want to own the robot, right? Or, on the same token, I don't want to pay for this robot if I'm not using it, right? I want that layout. I want to own that layout process if I'm going to be responsible for it, and so on and so forth, right? So when we are looking at the pay-as-you-go model, now we have to understand what is that price point going to be, right? So when understanding this, we wanted to make sure that we can meet our contractors at a price point that's going to be attractive no matter where we're working with our customers across the country, right? So in doing this, we wanted to understand first and foremost, what is the cost of layout per square foot for these customers that we're looking to work with. And as you can see, some of the lower cost per square foot comes from the wood framing in Texas and Oklahoma and those markets there. And then some of the highest up in Boston, Massachusetts, from 65 cents to 90 cents a square foot on a large children's hospital project. So now that we have this data and this information, how do we institute this pay-as-you-go model, right? So I want to be clear that the pay-as-you-go model is really a two-pronged approach, and you would need both approaches to really understand what this business model fully entails. And the first approach, or the first portion of this model, is that the customer or you guys out in the field would be investing in the hardware itself, right? So what does that mean? It means first and foremost, you buy that HP site print and that is your robot. So you own it. It is in your tool crib. You can deploy it whenever you see fit or whenever it's really going to provide a value to you on site. And at that price point of $50,000, it's a very attractive price point to get an autonomous layout robot into your tool crib portfolio, right? So once you own that robot at $50,000, then that pay-as-you-go model kicks in. So I have the robot, I bought this robot, but now I want to use it out on my sites, right? So with that pay-as-you-go model, we have three distinct models to choose from. The first is area, so that's 20 cents a square foot, points of $2 a point, and then lines, or $1 a linear foot, And so one of the first questions that comes up when I talk about the pay-as-you-go model is, well, what's included with that 20 cents a square foot? And the answer is literally everything that you need to operate this robot. So that includes ink, it includes support, repairs, maintenance, and the software, both the user interface software, the cloud software, everything that you need in order to make sure that this robot is running efficiently for you. So when we boil it all down, we know that this is how it's going to look when we're understanding how much is my site print going to cost me on site. So first off, we have the robot. We bought that robot. We know, how much that initial hardware investment was. And then now we look at a project like this, and we're going to look at it in terms of an area model. So at 20 cents a square foot, the site print support usage fee is calculated at the end of every calendar month based on the executed area of every printed CAD. So what you're seeing on the right-hand side here is an example of a CAD file that was printed by the HP site print. So everything within that red line is everything that was executed in that given month. Everything that's in blue is all the printed elements that the site print was physically able to print onto the slab. And then that black line, so the kind of the corners of that white box, that is what that actual slab looked like. So as you can see, you're not getting charged for the full length of the slab. You're only getting charged for the specific area that the site print travels within and prints within as well. And the good part is we only charge it at once per square foot. So let's say you start in the top left quadrant, you go to the bottom right quadrant, there's changes and adjustments to the CAD. You're able to go back and print within that square footage area that you've previously printed without any further cost. With the linear foot model, it's very simple, right? It's very similar to how that square footage model works, but it's really based on the actual printed distance that the site print travels. So instead of that 20 cents a square foot, it goes by every linear line, so every single line that site print is able to print, and that's how the CAD would be charged. So on this, you're seeing an example of an actual project that was printed along with that estimated execution cost. So where we're getting this data from is within the site print software itself. Every time you upload the CAD and select the elements that you want printed, it's going to tell you a few different things, right? It's going to tell you that total job time. So this project itself said, hey, this is going to take you roughly 15 hours of printing time to complete this project. And with that, there's a little over 8,000 linear feet covered and a square footage area of a little over 20,000 square feet. So with this job and with this project, all things being said, that square footage price came to 4,000. The linear foot price was just the same as whatever that printed distance was. So in this scenario, then the customer or the end user of that HP site print would then choose the square foot pricing model in order to utilize the site print on this specific project. So all things considered, the customer's buying that robot, has that hardware in their tool crib ready to go. And then for every project, they upload that CAD to get an estimate of not only how long is it going to take to print, but how much is that print going to cost them. So it's something very similar for our points model. And our points model is something that's really utilized by our MEP contractors, that when they go out to sites, what they're really looking for are their specific hanger points or penetration points or something along those lines, where really all they need is an actual point location and a label. So what you're seeing on the right-hand side is an example of exactly how that point model works within the HP site print. So you get the actual point location and you get that point label. And so those two things in conjunction are $2. So if you have 3,000 points on a deck, then your layout is going to cost you $6,000 for that given time. So on this page, what you're going to get is a very similar look to what we had for the square footage or the linear foot model, but this is really just focusing on our points, right? So in this specific project, we had a little under 1,200 points to print, and you can see that point model price is going to be the most attractive option for a site print user with this type of application to lay out. And as I mentioned earlier, everything really has to do with the CAD file, right? So we know that there's going to be adjustments and changes to the CAD in the field or as the project progresses. So what's really important is that as these new files or these new versions come in, you upload those new versions, it's going to stay within that same project, and you're not going to get charged twice for that specific area or for that specific project that you're looking to print. So When we boil it all down and comparing what that HP site print pay-as-you-go model looks like versus our traditional methods, we get a breakdown something similar to this, right? So that manual layout process, you still need that access to skilled labor. It's a man-hour intensive project, right? So this picture on the top left here is something that I'm sure many of you have seen on site many times before. It's a 2 to 4 person crew traditionally for interior finish layout, maybe a little smaller crews for our MEP contractors out there, but it is time intensive, right? And when we're dealing with tape measures, string lines, plumb bobs, there's a lot of human error and rework that can come into that equation. It's very hard to really account for rework, but we all know it's something that is going to happen on site. With that, you're still at the mercy of scheduling delays and the lack of coordination in terms of not being able to get the right people onto that project at the times where you have that deck or you have that project in order to lay out. And then in the center here, we kind of have that step up from that manual process, right? And that's our robotic total station assisted layout process. So with that, you need that hardware investment. You're buying that total station up front. You need that access to skilled labor. And now it's a skilled labor that knows and understands how to utilize a robotic total station. You still need at least a 1 to 2 person crew in order to lay out with those types of applications. And you're still getting that mix of human error, rework, and scheduling delays that come with making sure that you have the right tools and positions in place. And then lastly, on the right-hand side, this is what that optimized future state could look like if you're laying out with the HP SitePrint solution. So you're still going to be upfront investing in that hardware into the SitePrint itself. And then after that, you know exactly what your layout is going to cost you based on that predetermined cost per layout area, right? So in the previous examples we know, hey, my 20,000 square foot project is going to cost me X, or my 3,000 point project is going to cost me 6,000 points, right? So you know exactly how much that layout is going to cost you on site, whether or not that project gets delayed or not. It's just a matter of implementing that tool on site. And you still need the man hours or one trained operator in order to set that machine up and set the SitePrint up for success. But once that RTS is in place, once it's pointed to the SitePrint and the SitePrint knows exactly what it needs to do in order to print and operate in that job site location, it's going to do the work for you. So that operator can be coordinating deliveries, checking emails, attending meetings, all while the HP SitePrint is doing the hard work of laying out efficiently and accurately in the background for you and your team. So those are the basics of how that pay-as-you-go model works. But as we've developed over the last year of our kind of rollout of this solution, we've added a few different wrinkles to what that pricing model could look like, right? So one of the main things that came up was, hey, is there a maximum of how much I will pay per month in order to operate the SitePrint? And now the answer is yes. So the pay-as-you-go costs are capped each calendar month at $12,000 per SitePrint. So what does this mean? So firstly, it rewards our high volume users with lower costs, right? So if you're printing 200,000 square feet in a given month, you're getting maxed out at $12,000 per month. So that effective cost of your layout, instead of that 20 cents a square foot, is now down to 6 cents a square foot. In addition, it limits that financial exposure for large applications. So we work with some customers that lay out close to 1 million square feet in a given month. So if they're able to institute a few different site prints in order to get that layout done for them, there's not that risk of paying for every single one of those 1 million square feet that they're looking to lay out on site. And then lastly, we wanted to make sure this was applicable to any costing method. So this can be per square foot, per point, or per line. So on the right-hand side, I did a quick example of what this looks like in practice, just using round numbers to understand kind of what volumes look like in terms of what your total cost would be, but more importantly, what your effective cost per square foot laid out could look like with an HP SitePrint solution. I want to get into what a quick cost comparison scenario will look like using some real customer data, right? So this was a scenario that we came across recently. It was a customer that had a 75,000 square foot hospital project to lay out. So on the right, you can see this is the information that was uploaded into the HP SitePrint cloud. This project in particular, it was estimated to take about 45 hours and 35 minutes to complete. So when talking with the customer, trying to understand without the SitePrint solution, roughly how long would this take you to lay out? He told us it would take him roughly 2 weeks to lay out with a 3-man crew at a $75 an hour loaded labor rate. So now that we have all these variables to really look at and dive deep into, this is something that we like to use. It's our cost comparison scenario. So on the left-hand side, we have all the variables plugged in. So as you can see, it's a 75,000 square feet. We got to that HP site print layout productivity of 1,650 square feet an hour based on that total time to complete. So at that time to complete, it's roughly 45 hours to print 75,000 square feet, which is how we're able to really dial in those numbers. And then lastly, down on the left-hand side, utilizing 3 people at a $75 loaded labor rate, taking roughly 2 weeks to complete, was a productivity time of roughly 1,000 square feet per hour. So on the right-hand side, now that we have all these variables plugged in, you can see exactly what these costs really add up to. So with that operational expense, the HP site print actually comes out just a hair cheaper, especially when we're considering that the usage is capped at that $12,000 per month. In addition, the customer is able to complete that application roughly 30 hours quicker than what he originally budgeted for. And then my favorite part of this equation, he was able to do this in roughly 45 hours of man-hour time versus 225 hours of man-hour time with a 3-person operation. So this green box is really what it all comes down to, right? 30 project hours saved, 180 man-hours saved, and a total man-hour savings of a little over 13,000. So given all this information, right, this is what that deep dive into the total cost of the project really looked like. So the site print cost was roughly 16 cents a square foot. The traditional method was a little over that 20 cents a square foot at 22.5. So with that operational cost is a debit to each side of that equation. But with the site print, we're able to really have that value add of a little over $13,400 worth of man hours that would have been lost during that traditional layout method. Because we all know with that labor shortage that is prevalent in most markets in the construction industry, those people that you had earmarked to lay out that project, it's not like they're going to be laid off or fired. They're going to be reallocated to different applications on that project to help you finish that job a little bit quicker, or they can go to a different job to get another one off the ground. So all things considered, the site print cost versus the traditional layout cost came out to about $15,000 savings just on this project alone. And what this really doesn't take into account is the value added from some of these hidden costs as well. So the elimination of human error, right? The scheduling delays due to lack of labor. If you only have to dedicate 1 person to this versus 3, and the ability to lay out multiple projects under that monthly cap. So in this scenario, this was one project that took roughly a week and change to lay out with the site print, but now there's almost 3 weeks of usage that can now be implemented on different projects across this specific customer's workflow chain. But with that, you don't have to take my word for it. So we had a discussion, a pre-recorded discussion with Chris McKee from Turner Construction out of their Ohio branch. And with that, I am going to share my screen with Chris, and you'll be able to hear it from him firsthand, just how the HP site print affected his business and work.
My name is Chris McKee. I'm the reality capture manager in this area. Basically, we survey everything. We're surveyors. We're just surveyors on steroids. We have a very good tool set that we use. I've been surveying for about 30 years. I'm going to be sitting for my professional surveying license this year, hopefully, if the state board lets me. And we use everything from total stations to GNSS to scanners to robots, levels, and everything in between. So we use every tool in the tool shed when it comes to what we do, and we make sure that we're as accurate as possible, because we survey. We don't do vertical construction. We survey everything. So yeah, that's what we do.
Awesome. Well, that's fantastic. And again, we appreciate you joining us today. So prior to the HP site print, can you walk me through what did Turner, Ohio's current or layout workflow look like?
Yeah, so currently we have a group called SPO, which is a self-perform organization within Turner. And we hire people, union members, and we also team up with other companies to lay out walls and just all kinds of things. Turner wanted to try to bring this in-house and see what we could do in-house, and we have people that are specialized in this, and a group of people to do that. When the HP came out and the other robot came out, we looked at both. We were really interested in the process of this because we know that we do everything from the model. Everything that we do comes from a coordinated model. All the layout, all the shop drawings, everything comes from that coordinated model. So for us, it's really simple to take that coordinated model, export out a DWG, bring it into Civil 3D, use the points, massage it, use the HP ribbon, send that up to the website, and we're good to go. But what made this very unique is that we owned it, just kind of what you talked about before. We didn't want to pay a lease option on something that would be sitting for a certain amount of time, even though they said no, we won't, it won't sit, we'll send it, send it to another job site. Well, our job sites work really, really fast, and sometimes when we're ready on one site, we're not ready on the other. So owning it was a benefit for us because we only use it when we need it, and we can roll it from different sites because of the way that the projects works on the website. So when we first tested this out, it was super simple for us to take the drawing file from the design team and just bring in the stuff we want. It's pretty darn accurate. We've tested the 1/8 inch accuracy on it, and we had another team that we work with. They have an HP, different flavor of that HP, and we were pretty much an 1/8 inch off. Sometimes it even crossed over the line a little bit. So yeah, it works great. It's helped us save about 2/3 of the time between the layout process of 2 to 3 guys to what we do with the robot. So if it takes us a week to lay out, an area with a robot, it would take us 3 weeks to do it with a team. And we have big projects, 4,000 anchor bolts, hangers, thousands and thousands of feet of walls. So it's a huge time saving.
Awesome. And so when using the site print, how did that come into play when estimating your total layout costs?
Well, we've only had it for about 3 months. That was all that estimating was done before the project even started. We added this in to think, okay, how can we save the time? Because if we get ahead of schedule, just kind of what Jim says, we get ahead of the schedule, we get it on, we finish early, under budget, then that's a bonus for everybody. The project that we're working on right now, everybody gets a piece of that pie. So if we finish ahead of schedule, then everybody benefits from it. It's not just a Turner Construction thing. But when it comes to estimating, it's maybe about a half. I don't know, because you still have time to set the file up and then get on site and do that process. Once the process is going, it works pretty fast. But trying to find the right file, making sure that the file is correct before we even get started, all that kind of stuff comes into play. So it's a difference between having one person do that than to have 3 people reading off the plan. So makes sense.
Awesome. So when you have those 3 people crews out there, how often did you have rework or mistakes, and what was the kind of quantification of what happens when something's in the wrong spot, that inaccurate layout?
Well, usually it was an argument. This never happens, right?
Right.
Usually it's an argument to see who is more correct.
Mm-hmm.
So who's not actually correct. For an example, we would have walls that the stub ups for those walls would actually come up into the walls. The guys laying out, or the people laying this out, they would put the walls down, and the stub ups would be inside or outside the walls. So they weren't reading the whole plans by saying, oh, there's supposed to be stub ups that go up through these walls. So why didn't that happen? They're not going to think about that. We're out there looking at the entire model at one time. So we can see, oh, there's a stub up that goes through there. And if that printer doesn't hit those conduits, then there's a problem. Or we measure, because it'll stop before it hits those conduits, and we measure and it doesn't hit it, then we can stop right there and resolve that problem really quickly. So the speed of the resolutions are faster, and the more knowledge that we have in that model makes the printing go smoother, because we have that kind of inherent knowledge of what it's supposed to look like because we deal with the model. The mistakes are limited because everything comes from the model. So for us, it's pretty simple. If we measure a few things off and it matches what's in the field and matches the model, then we're good to go. Off we go.
And what's been the reaction like from the guys in the field that are out there using it?
Uh, there's a little bit of mixed reaction. We deal a lot with union members, and that's, you know, there's been people who say, well, you're taking away from jobs. We're really not taking away jobs. The example that I have is we had guys trying to figure out where they're at in the building to set these walls in place. They called us in with the printer to lay out that first set of track so they could do the rest of the walls. We did that because we had control inside the building. The guys that lay out the walls don't necessarily use control. They use string and tape. Well, where's the center of the column? The column's not square. How do you measure off the center of the column? You know, it might be one of those angled columns, which is what we had. So we came in and laid out that first track and verified that the center of column was this, you know, a space outside of the steel. Once they did that, then they were good to go. They were pretty amazed. Start out like this is crazy, and we were like, hey, we'll show you how to use it. It was pretty simple. So getting those people kind of involved with it instead of coming in and blindsiding them with here's what we're going to do to fix things, or here's what we're going to do to make things better, might not be the best objective. We come in and go, what can we do to help you? Here's what we're going to do. You know, here's the options that we have to help you. If you don't want our help, that's fine, but here's what we're going to do to help you, and it seems to work pretty well.
Awesome. And then kind of on the flip side of that, what was the conversation like at the office at Turner when kind of making that decision to move forward with the site print?
Well, what we do here is we invest a lot in technology here on this site specifically. We have another robot that we started with 4 years ago that kind of kicked off the innovation side of what we do. So when we said, hey, we found a new robot, they were kind of like, okay, so let's get it. I'm like, well, wait a minute, but you guys want to know what the price is? I'm like, we trust you. Let's just get it. So I still tried to, you know, we don't want to spend too much money on this other robot when we can get this one and the benefits and so on and so forth. So we wrote up a proposal and got everything together and trying to figure out what the cost was. But for us, it was pretty easy to convince the upper management that we're going to save time, accuracy, and get things done, you know, quicker. They were kind of like, yeah, let's give it a go and see what happens. So it was pretty easy.
Perfect. So let me switch gears here a little bit, and yeah, apologize for going over time, but we'll finish up here pretty soon. And like Heather mentioned, we'll have a recording of this session available if you want to go and check it out after the fact. So really thankful for Chris McKee from Turner for spending some time with us to kind of go through how the HP site print has affected his business, and we'll kind of tie it up here with, you know, how can the HP site print impact your business, right? So firstly, the big thing that I like to really understand is what are you buying with the HP site print, right? So if we can really break it down into 4 key bullet points, it's really what you're buying is predictable costs and time, accurate quality layout, increased speed of layout, and then reduced overall man hours for your projects overall, right? So really what it comes down to is one word, is time, right? So what you're buying with the HP site print is you're able to buy time on each one of your projects within that layout process, but also it has effects downstream by reducing that rework, by increasing those efficiencies on site, to really understand, you know, one big thing, right? And the success of each project comes down to one thing, and that's hours. So if you're able to save 30, 40, 200 hours on a given project, what does that do for your overall costs on that given project and for the overall bottom line for your given company? So with that, I'll finish it up and just say thank you so much for joining today and sticking around a little bit longer than we had originally planned. And if you have any questions or would like to see a demo or need any follow-up information, please feel free to reach out to us, your HP team, or your local channel partner that hopefully sent you on this way for the webinar. So with that, I'll finish it up. I think that's all we had. I know there was a few questions that were getting answered in the chat, and we can stick around if there's anything else that anyone wants to drop into that chat box. But with that, I'll shut my mouth and just say thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate your time.